Welcome to the Bible Forum. I'm Warren Sprouse. This is the Counseling Corner. We're going to be talking about when all the world around you is going crazy. You see, we're living in a world that has become more technical, but at the same time, it has become more subjective. I don't know how you put those two things together, but watch the news. And you'll see all sorts of technical issues being discussed in and among all sorts of crazy social issues as though they're the same. Just this week, PETA observed that the last president without a pet got impeached. Now, what does that have to do with anything? Well, it's cute, it's cuddly, it's intelligent, we thought about it. Maybe we should look for street demonstrations against a president who doesn't have a pet. I don't know. And what about the Twitter world? When was the last time you saw or heard anything on that outlet that wasn't strange? And all of it passes for things we need to know. You probably need to tap into my Twitter account because I only have godly men and women on there telling me things that I think are important. I don't have all the junky stuff. I know I don't spend much time on the Twitter feed, but when I get more time, the things that pass for what we need to know really generally aren't. They're usually silly or they're destructive. You see, the world is collapsing in on itself, and we're talking about how the president revealed what he got his wife for her birthday and how insensitive that is. Or for her telling the world before giving it to her, and because it was just a card. And the same is true about the social, emotional, spiritual problems that people have. People set out to live without rules. They purpose to do that, to live without objective standards. They're not going to do what anybody else thought would be right or ever did, without any boundaries. And then they turn around one day and insist that they must have a mental disorder when they can no longer function. Oh wait, they don't insist this. The psychiatric community does that for them. They created the terminology. So what is a mental disorder? Well, the first thing you need to know about a mental disorder is that it has absolutely nothing to do with the mental. Nothing to do with the mind. And the second thing you need to know is that the mental has nothing to do with the brain either. So just how is all this disordered? Well, perhaps I was born with this. Or perhaps somebody did it to me. Maybe I caught it from someone or something. Or maybe I did it to myself. Now, if you're in the psychological community, you're pulling your hair out and saying, these guys are nut. These are inflammatory statements or questions. And I'm sure I'm going to get the mail. And it's all right. People are going to write to me and tell me how crazy I am. That's not the first time. They will insist that I have a mental disorder because I'm saying stupid things like this. Or they're going to insist on it because the accusations are removing all their excuses. And it's much easier to focus back on me, which the mental health community largely ignores, at least in terms of terminology. So the real issues here are what I have done or not done, what values I have embraced, what feelings I have encouraged or discouraged, or maybe who I've been talking to. Now, the fact is, some people tend to worry. It is their reality. And for many people, it's normal. It's not a disorder. They are worrywarts. We've always had them. It has to do with their personality. Some people tend to get excited easily. That's their reality. That's their personality. It's not a sickness. It can be irritating. It can be frustrating for them. But they can get a hold of that. Others live in a morbid world of thoughts and feelings, very deep and heavy. Some people never see anything that's truly serious. They don't understand the other guys. And so the question becomes, which one of these people has a mental disorder? Because they're all out there. And the answer is none of them. Now, if you give in to the extremes on any of these, you're going to have problems. But none of it's going to be mental, as the psychological community defines mental, let alone that it's going to be disordered, like it's not functioning properly. Look, I'm angry. It's functioning properly. Look, I'm discouraged. I'm normal. I'm supposed to be. Look at what's going on. But the psychological community has coined this idea of a mind that has to do with the way we think. And the first definition in the American Heritage Dictionary says the human consciousness that originates in the brain. It goes on to mention emotions, imagination, collective consciousness, and intelligence. But it also mentions the unconsciousness processes in a sentient organism that direct and influence mental and physical behavior. Now, all of this is entirely physical and is not very helpful. But if you're going to look at the Bible, God created us. How did He make us? What is all this stuff? In the Bible, the term mind is used to describe a thinking creature as opposed to a brute beast. Other places it's about deliberation or the thoughts that we have. But at no point does it talk about decisions. The decisions of life, according to God, are from the heart. Those are the things that direct my path, not what's going on in my brain, which, by the way, is not your mind. That's another story. In the psychological community, it's all about the mind. And the mind's disordered, or you wouldn't be acting like this. So what do they mean, disordered? They mean convoluted, confused, damaged. My brain is damaged? Well, no. My brain is confused. So if I learn to think right, all will be well? Well, no. Because I'll still have these feelings, these urges, these fears. You need drugs. Or maybe you need talk therapy. You just sit there and talk to me and tell me how you feel, and I'll respond to it or not. Depends on what philosophy I have as a psychiatrist and so forth. And how and that will fix me? Oh, no. You're not going to get fixed ever. You will need the drugs or you will need the therapies the rest of your life. You're disordered. Now, you might be thinking this is an exaggeration, and it is, but only slightly. The psychological community has enough critics and has had ever since the days of Sigmund Freud to last them a lifetime. But when you see a discipline trying so hard to be a respected medical and or therapeutic healthcare system and failing so often, so miserably, it's got to make you wonder. Now, they've had their successes. But how much of a success is it when the patient is on serious drugs for the rest of their life? Or they cannot function without a regular session with their psychiatrist. The biological psychiatrist wears a doctor's coat. The behavioral psychiatrist wears a sweater. And both of them claim to be treating the psyche. when both of them are aimed at the mind. One with drugs, the other mechanical therapies, another with talk, encouragement projects. And the Bible doesn't recognize either of these, since the brain is not the mind. And since behavior flows from something more basic to who and what we are than just simply a brain. In this situation, the old adage works: if you do right, you will feel right. Live on nothing but sugar, and you will have serious emotional and ultimately physical problems. Along the way, you will have relationship and employment problems. Is there a drug or a conversation that will fix this? No. There is only right behavior. Now, human beings are complex creatures. You can't put everybody in a box. Maybe you can't put anybody in a box. But we, as a society, have wandered off into selfish behaviors over the last 100 years or so, and it is taking its toll on our DNA. Therefore, some people are born with inherent physical, social, behavioral issues. And these very well may be the result of a cause and effect genetic issue. These folks are an entirely separate category. They exist because of the irresponsibility of their forebears. You do this, you get that. And our sympathies go out to them. But most people are not in this category. Jesus challenged us, Matthew chapter 22, verse 37, to love God with our mind. Not our brain. With our heart. With our body. But especially with our mind. What did he mean? He meant with the way we think, with the way we understand life. In Mark chapter 5, verse 15, the demoniac was healed as Jesus cast out the demon. Observers noted that he was now in his right mind. The demon wasn't in his brain. In Romans chapter 1, verse 28, the Apostle Paul is laying out the core issues regarding a morally and spiritually corrupt society, speaking of a reprobate mind. Literally a worthless way of thinking, a worthless way of reasoning, a worthless way of living. In Romans chapter 12, he offers a solution in verse 2. Do not be conformed to this world system, but be transformed. How? By the renewing of your mind. Renew it, renovate it, clean it out, clean it up. Learn to think right. Get rid of the chaos that is your thought process. The one that tells you you have to latch on to every new social structure that comes along, every new gadget, every new idea, every philosophy of life. Is that what you're hearing from your therapist? Eat right, sleep right, work regularly, think only right thoughts, think only good thoughts if possible. Feed your soul, your spirit, the immaterial part of your being. Feed it right. Treat others the way you want to be treated. Learn to love. Love meaning giving, expecting nothing in return. Learn to give, again, expecting nothing in return. Learn to control your thoughts. Only wholesome, positive thinking. This means cutting out the riotous music that you love, no doubt. Cutting out the immoral and insane TV programs that do you no good. Stop feeding on the news of the day. Stop tweeting. Shut the noise, I should say, of this world out. Why? Because apparently you can't handle it. And the whole world is filled with noise. Noise that corrupts your soul, confuses you, confuses your values, your morals, feeds on your fears, your desires, distorts your boundaries and your standards. It's a basic issue as far as the Bible is concerned. Philippians chapter 4. Rejoice in the Lord always. And again I say rejoice. There are many things in life that tear at your heart and soul. You can dwell on them if you want to, or you can rejoice in the Lord who bought you. Let your moderation be known unto all men. The Lord is at hand. A life of moderation in all things, instead of trying to tap into everything that comes along. Have you noticed yet? The world isn't standing still. Frisbees were a hot commodity at one time. We're moving. As soon as you get used to one excess, there's another right behind it, and it's feeding that one. Soon your entire life is one of excess instead of discipline and strength. Verse 6, be careful for nothing. The idea of being careful means don't be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving in your heart, let your requests be made known unto God. You can worry about this stuff, or you can pray about it. And don't let the world fill your heart with fear. The fear that you're going to be left out. There isn't anything in this world, anything that this world offers, that's more important than God. And there's nothing being offered you that God cannot protect you from or give you if you need. How? 1 Corinthians 10:13. In the midst of temptation, God is still faithful. He will allow you to be tempted, but not beyond that which you are able, but will with every temptation make a way of escape, that you may be able to bear it. Look for it. Embrace it. And, verse 7, the peace of God, which passes all understanding, shall, legal term, shall keep your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. Finally, brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report, if there be any virtue in them, and if there be any praise anywhere, think on these things. And those things which ye have both learned and received and heard and seen in me, the Apostle Paul, do. And the God of peace shall be with you. This is God's recipe for a balanced thought life. And it's a whole lot cheaper than a psychiatrist or the drugs that the biological psychiatrist or the psychologist will give you.